Welcome to the Sage Family Podcast, where we explore natural homeschooling, gentle parenting,
simple living, and family adventure.
I'm Rachel Rainbolt, the Sage Family Mentor, coming to you from an island in the Pacific Northwest, where I live wild and free in connection with my hilarious husband and 3 growing sailors in our fixer-upper on the beach. So join us around the campfire and let's get living the family life of our dreams. This is episode 97, and today I'm here with Lisa Rothman talking about conflict prevention and repair. Lisa's a mom who's spent more than 20 years learning, practicing, and teaching collaborative communication skills. The tools she's mastered and created resolve conflicts with children in her own family and families all over the world. While I have been passionately doing this work for decades, I have recently expanded my offerings to include therapy. 16 years ago, upon completion of my graduate education and family therapy practicum, I gave birth to my second child and pivoted from therapy to coaching, which has allowed me to show up for you and for my children in full alignment with my values. In recent years, my children have grown into greater independence. My capacity has increased, the therapy landscape has evolved, and I have felt called to expand back into the therapeutic space, where the deep, rich, meaningful emotional labor I do with families is more visible and valued. This is an exciting midlife evolution for me, and I'm hoping you'll all cheer me on. I continue to offer all of the support that you have all come to appreciate, like the Sage Family Village, courses, podcast, and coaching to families all over the world. But for folks residing in Washington State, I can now also offer the support of therapy. To learn more, visit sagefamily.com/therapy. Welcome to the show, Lisa. Will you introduce yourself and share a bit about who you are and what you're passionate about?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. It is a pleasure to see you first time. We've been doing some collaborating of our own and getting ready for this episode, and it feels like it's coming to fruition. So, who I am a mother of 2. My oldest son's birthday is today. He just turned 18.
Happy birthday! Oh my gosh, 18, you did it!
We did it. This is a whole new identity shift, a whole new chapter. Not only is it his birthday, he's going to the prom tonight, and I'm getting to be here on this podcast with you. It feels significant.
Yes, and my firstborn is 18, so there's a special, connection here in that.
Exactly. So that's part of who I am. Another part of who I am is what I'm passionate about, which is I am passionate about people being able to be who they truly are. And I want to support parents in helping their children to be who they truly are, just as I want parents to be able to be who they truly are. Because then everyone gets to be out in the world being their authentic selves. And that is what our world needs so desperately right now. And what gets in the way, I think, of people being who they truly are is we don't know how to speak truth with care, our own truth with care. And that then results in all sorts of conflicts. And so I've dedicated my life to learning how to speak truth with care as a way to prevent and repair conflicts, and then contributing that to families. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I do.
Whew, you are just the right person for this conversation. I love when that all comes together. So I was going to title this episode Nonviolent Communication originally. I read Nonviolent Communication a million years ago, loved the book, and lots of people have asked for an episode on nonviolent communication. And it took me a long time to find just the right person. And my dear client, friend, former assistant, Yana, reached out and said, Rachel, I've got the perfect person for you. You need to talk to Lisa. She's going to have this conversation with you. It's going to be great. And you said that you prefer other terms like collaborative mindset and, conflict to connection and things like that. And I love that. And I want to speak to that before we dive into this conversation. Can you share maybe the meaning behind that preference?
Absolutely. So, for starters, nonviolent communication, everything that I'm sharing is based on nonviolent communication. But when we hear the term nonviolent communication, people have typically a few different negative reactions. So, Rachel, when you hear nonviolent communication, what happens for you when you hear that term?
I think of violence.
Right? Right? But
Yes.
we're talking about nonviolence, but now we're talking about violence. This is confusing.
Mhm.
And since so much about what we're wanting to be doing is what is it that we want as opposed to what it is that, as opposed to not focusing on what we don't want, it's like, what do we want to move towards?
Yeah.
That we're defining this as in a negative term. This is awkward. I see another problem with the word nonviolent because people can think, well, I don't need that. I'm not slapping my kid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not me. And if I do this, does it mean that I actually have violent tendencies? Like, what would that say about me? Do I want to be identified with this? So I've got issues with the word nonviolent, like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I also actually have issues with the word communication. Because while I know I just talked about how important it is to speak truth with care, people can fall into this trap of thinking it's all about saying the right words
Mm.
and like checking a box off when really it's about having a mindset shift about how do we see our kids in their full humanity? How do we collaborate with our kids in that full humanity while at the same time respecting our own humanity and our own needs? So for that reason, I think like collaborative mindset captures much more of
Mm.
what we're going to be talking about and what I know you and your listeners are so committed to.
Yeah, it's like the communication part is like just the vehicle that delivers all the actual stuff, the goods, the work. And it's funny because it took people had been recommending the nonviolent communication book to me for literally years, and I resisted it because the title did not appeal to me at all. Like, I don't need to learn how to not hit children or not be aggressive in my words. Like, that's not really something that resonated with me. And then finally, I got to that book in my stack. I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to read it. And I loved it. Like, and I loved him. And I listened to the audiobook, which he sounds like Mr. Rogers in
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the
And the
most,
he we're talking about is Marshall Rosenberg.
yes,
And I
yes.
had the privilege of actually taking some workshops with him and experiencing him
What?
in person. And it was an absolute Mr. Rogers vibe. You know, talk about seeing your unique humanity. Here's someone who's all about that. It
Yeah.
really felt like a homecoming.
Yes. Yeah. My inner child was like, oh my gosh, it's Mr. Rogers for grown-ups. But yes, I agree with you. The title felt misaligned with like the work. And I know you've been doing this work for a long time and you have sort of your own spin on it and some things you've learned and some adjustments you've made. So we're going to get into all of that.
Cool.
All right. How did you discover collaborative communication and why have you dedicated your life to practicing it?
Because I wanted to do different things than my parents did. I'm guessing a lot of people listening can relate to that. So a little bit about me. I was born the daughter of two doctors, so tremendous privilege. But despite that financial security, I spent my childhood feeling profoundly insecure. And in hindsight, it was for two reasons. Reason one, my parents, who loved me deeply and wanted the absolute best for me, parented me in a fairly traditional way. So when I did things that they didn't like, I was sent to my room and told to think about it. I had my privileges taken away from me, no TV. And this felt to me, I can still remember how that felt as a kid, the breach of trust, the sense of betrayal. These people who I love and I depend on are making unilateral decisions for me, and I'm not getting to have a conversation about it. Was something that felt so profoundly not how I wanted things to be going, that I was like, okay, when I have kids, I want to do it differently. But then something else happened that was the second reason I felt very insecure. And that was that when I was 5 years old, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And subsequently, I was told, oh, everything's fine. But I felt very insecure. And I found out when I was 16 years old that insecurity was well founded. Because it turned out that my parents, out of love and with the best of intentions, had withheld really important information from me and others for 11 years, probably because they couldn't handle it themselves, which is that they knew that all that time that my mother's cancer was spreading through her body. But they couldn't figure out a way to share that truth with care, probably because they couldn't take it in themselves. So before I had kids, I was determined that I was going to have a plan for handling speaking difficult truths with care and also collaborating with kids. And so I was producing a radio show. It's so great to produce a radio show. Maybe you have the fun as a podcast producer. A lot of people want to come on the show, and I got lots of books. So I had these crates of books all around my desk, and out popped one of them. It had this blue sky cover and puffy clouds, and it said Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life by Marshall Rosenberg. And I opened it up, and like you, I said, here it is. Here is a map to follow. And now here we are, and my oldest son's 18 years old, and I have gotten to parent him and learn how to use these skills and share them with hundreds of people.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story. Oh, I think so many people can relate to that journey of being raised in a way where we had some intuitive knowing that this is not quite right. Like, and that we wanted to do things differently. And those moments when we're able to like find those pieces of maps, to help us like put that picture together is so empowering.
That bring us back to ourselves.
Yes.
I had this experience. I don't know if you ever get, from your kids, like last minute, there's something that like it's urgent.
Yeah.
And so I got this urgent, oh God, Mom, this is from my younger son. And I have permission to share all these stories with you. My kids have given me permission for that. So he said, Mom, I need a white Sharpie. I was like, a white Sharpie? Like, did you know such a thing existed? In like a white Sharpie? And I think this is a lot like parenting. It's like all these things come at us that we are not expecting. Like when before I had kids, I didn't know just how much time was going to be spent around trying to prevent and repair conflicts.
Yeah.
But then the miracle that happened was that it turned out we actually had a white Sharpie. It was in the basement. Who knew? My husband did. My husband did. And so I think, as we go into this conversation about what does it look like to collaborate with kids in an efficient and effective way, how do we prevent and repair conflicts with them? It's coming back to ourselves. We actually know this stuff already. We're just codifying it, reminding, doing little refining. It's all in us.
Yes. So agree. Okay, nonviolent communication provides a template for working through conflict that expresses what I observe, what I feel, what I need or value, and a request. It sounds like When I see or hear blank, I feel blank because I need or value blank. Would you be willing to blank?
Blank.
And I'll link to a worksheet to help folks remember that in the show notes. But you have observed some pitfalls, particularly for beginners, and offer a methodology that is in alignment with NVC, but easier to put into practice.
Got it.
Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely, because I don't know about you, but I know how to do this, and I was hearing those 4 steps and feeling mildly overwhelmed and confused. It's a lot. Like, where do I begin? How do I make an observation that doesn't include judgment? Feelings, this person doesn't like to talk about feelings. I'm going to talk about feelings with them. What the heck is a need? And I'm supposed to come up with a request at the end of all this? I'm exhausted. Okay, so for starters, I'm going to share a methodology that is 100% in alignment with everything that was just said and also much more accessible. But before we get there, I want to establish the premise of what we're doing. Okay, so the first part to grok is that great news. We human beings, despite the mess that we are currently in as we look outside and see all of the heartbreaking conflict that is going on all over the world and possibly in our own homes, we all have a lot in common. We all have needs. Some of these needs are like the need for food, clothing, shelter, air. Maybe clothing actually isn't much of a need. Maybe I misspoke. Maybe, if it's warm enough, we actually don't need clothing. So let's put that. But let's forget about the clothing one. There are other needs though. Needs for meaning, connection, learning, belonging, and their needs for power, autonomy, choice. More good news. Our needs are never in conflict. It's the strategies that we use to meet our needs that get us into conflict. For example, if there is one delicious chocolate chip cookie on your kitchen table and both of us lunge for it, our strategy for meeting our need for food, this has just come into conflict. But the need for food is not in conflict. And so if we can dive down under into what is the need, we both have a need for food, we can all of a sudden get much more creative about how we're going to meet that need. Oh, what do you have in your fridge? Oh, there's some fruit. There are some strawberries. Let's split this cookie. This is a very simplistic example, but I'm just using it to illustrate the distinction between the strategies and the needs. So everything in terms of collaboration and preventing and repairing conflicts turns on this, recognizing the strategy and then uncovering the need. Okay, there's something else that's important to understand as we head into this, which is that to prevent and repair conflicts, it is, I would say, essential to let go of right, wrong, good, bad thinking. So, the poet and mystic Rumi has this poem, and it's this. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. So as we go into thinking about how to prevent and repair conflicts, we need to get to that field so that we can do it effectively. And so that brings us to these wonderful role plays that I got to do with your community. Do you want to share? You want to share about that? Because we're about to listen to some of them to hear the methodology explained.
Yes, I'm so excited. So you allowed me to put the invitation out to my community that you were open to doing some sessions with some of our listeners. And then we would get to listen to pieces from those sessions to sort of highlight the process and highlight like some of the real challenges that parents on the ground are working with and how to navigate through them with, authenticity and compassion and, in a way like you talked about that lets go of that right or wrong and accepts with trust that we're all humans with needs that are neither right nor wrong, and there's always a way to that overlap in the Venn diagram of needs.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's super important and in complete alignment with everything that you talk about and
Yes.
share with your listenership. So it was amazing to connect with your listeners. I talked to a bunch of them. We're going to listen to one. We're going to be using some pseudonyms to protect everyone's anonymity here. So this, what we're about to hear, this is a mom. This is Lena. She has two kids named Valentina and Vienna. Valentina is 4, Vienna is 2. And so what you're going to have a chance to hear is what happened the other day that was very, very challenging. And you're going to get to hear, oh gosh, if we look at this through the lens of right and wrong, it sort of leads to a predetermined destination. So let's listen to Lena describe what happened the other day when she was making dinner.
Yesterday, they were playing together. I was cooking, and then I heard the baby cry. And then when I came, she said, I didn't do anything. They all once said that. And then I asked the baby, and she pointed at her, and I said, did Valentina do something? And then she pointed at her head, and she had a big red mark on her forehead. So I knew she hit her with something because it was big enough for me to notice. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted, and I just want to give her a timeout and just be conventional and see if that works.
Yeah. So I could imagine, if we're in right, wrong, good, bad thinking here, Rachel, who in this situation do you think, as you just hear this, is in the wrong?
I think no one is in the wrong.
Well, that's because you are evolved, and thank heavens for you. But I could imagine a whole bunch of people hearing that
The
situation and thinking,
aggressor.
the aggressor is in the wrong. Valentina is wrong, wrong, wrong. And I'm at my wit's end. It's the end of the day, and all I can think of to do is give her a timeout. Okay, so let's go into that field of there's no wrongdoing and no right doing, and let's see what can happen. And so that's where this methodology occurs. And so I call it the 4 C's of conflict prevention and repair. The first C, create space. It is very challenging in the moment to prevent a conflict, to repair a conflict. What can we do to gracefully disengage without making the situation worse? I like to use lines like, I'm having a hard time with this. I need a moment. Okay. The second C, the second stage is connect with self. So I want to get clear about what strategy it is that I am attached to, and from there uncover what needs I am trying to meet with that strategy, and get a lot of empathy for why I would be attached to that strategy given the needs that I am trying to meet. Because the more I'm attached to my strategy, the easier it is for me to be in right, wrong thinking, the harder it is for me to be creative. The more likely I am to try to get the other person to change their strategy, put my energy into that, then they're trying to change my strategy. We're each super attached to our strategies, like a barnacle stuck to a boat. We're tugging on each other's strategies really, really hard. How do we release strategy? We give ourselves empathy. So connect with self, get the empathy so that we can release the strategy, and provided we can get our needs met, we're open to hearing other strategies. That's the indication that we are ready to move on to the third C, connect with others. If we haven't released our strategy well enough and we move to that third stage too quickly, our resentment's probably going to leak onto them, and we're not really ready to collaborate. But once we are, we move on to the third stage, connect with others. What is their strategy? What needs are they trying to meet? Give them empathy so that they can loosen the hold that they have on their strategy barnacle. And then once that happens, and you can physically sense it in your body, there's just more ease there. Then it's time to step 4, third C, co-create a new strategy that works better for everyone because it attends to more needs. So those are the 4 C's of conflict prevention and resolution. So great news with Lena. The first C, create space. That's what happened. She said, hey, I'd like some support. And so this conversation that we had took place in the park. Her older daughter, Valentina, was at preschool. You're going to hear in this next clip, her younger daughter, Vienna, is playing on the swing. She was moving through the park as we were doing this. So she created enough space for us to figure out what was going on. And so in this next clip, what you're gonna have a chance to hear is me offering her a chance to connect with herself, giving her some empathy, identifying what the strategy is that she, as the mom, is attached to and what needs are underneath that. So let's listen to that now. And you're doing everything that you've been told to do, you've been doing, and it's still not resulting in the older one not hitting and not understanding the hitting. And so out of desperation, you're like, well, maybe if I put her in a timeout, it'll get the behavior that I want. And of course you want to be able to leave them alone so you can make dinner. You don't want to have to be supervising them all the time. You've got to make dinner. And under those conditions, I could imagine myself also thinking like, well, what's going to move the needle here? Maybe a timeout is what's called for. Have I captured your state of mind? Have I accurately taken it in, or am I missing something?
Yes. You captured it exactly. Yeah.
If we think about yesterday, your strategy that you are attached to, I'm going to give it words and you're going to correct me. The strategy that you're attached to is that you being able to cook dinner without having both children in the same room with you, and that your older one will not hit the younger one.
Yes.
Does that capture the strategy you're attached to?
Yes, that they're able to resolve conflict without having to, be aggressive towards each other.
Okay, right. And so that's a strategy that you're attached to. And the needs you're meeting with that strategy are you want basic functioning of the household, vital functions. You're trying to make dinner so that everyone can be fed. You want to have peace of mind so much. Are there any other needs that you're meeting through your attachment to that strategy, do you think? Is there anything else that's really important to you?
Yeah, no, I think that you just capture them. I want them to be able to be with each other while I'm gone for a few minutes, and to be comfortable and to be respectful. Yes.
We know we're ready to move on to the third stage of this process. If you're willing to consider other strategies besides the one you've come up with, provided your needs get met, are you willing to consider other strategies?
Yes.
It's so good. It makes me think of how, like, I will often shout from the rooftops, like, your child is not the problem, your needs are not the problem, your expectation is the problem. And your sort of language around that is like your strategy is the problem. Like it's true that what creates the conflict between the humans is the things that we're trying to do to get our needs met that are not in alignment with the needs of the people around us. So I love that. And the last thing that just came to mind that I had to share is that in therapeutic terms, we can refer to sort of the first part of your process here as like creative hopelessness, which is that's what we call it in acceptance and commitment therapy. When you are able to, when you're sitting with someone and you're able to sort of highlight that, like, you have tried, you have done your strategy so well, like you worked so hard at it, you really went all in on this strategy. Like, no one can call you lazy, no one can call you stupid. Like, you went all in on it and you did it as well as it could be done. And is it giving you the result that you want? Is it working? in terms of moving you in alignment with your values to a destination that you want to be in.
Exactly. I love how you frame that, and I do see a complete connection between your use of the word expectation and my use of the word strategy. So we are totally in alignment here. Okay, so she was ready now to move on to step 3, and this is where we went into connect with others, in this case, Valentina. We didn't have Valentina at the playground, and so I invited her mom to pretend to be her, and then I pretended to be the mom. And so in connecting with others, that's what you're going to hear. I'm pretending I'm talking to the 4-year-old.
Oh, I love a role play. Let's do it.
Valentina, it seems like you're really mad at Vienna. Can you tell me why you're mad?
She destroyed the little house I made.
Of course you're mad that she destroyed the little house. If I was making something and someone destroyed that, I'd be mad too. I'd be so mad. There's difficulty, and I'm wondering actually if you can help me solve a problem. I'm cooking dinner and I'm not looking, and then Vienna does things that make you really, really mad. What could we do instead so that you don't get mad?
I don't know, I can yell at her, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't want Vienna to follow me. She follows me around all the time. I don't want her to follow me.
So we were heading into co-creating a new strategy there. And what we determined was that, when the mom stepped out of role and we were talking about, what actually is in capacity here. And we
Yes.
determined, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking as I was listening to that, is that so often, like, the expectation is that there is a capacity or a resource well on which the child can draw that is not actually there.
Yep. Yep. And so together we came up with a new strategy. So let's listen to that new strategy that Lena, the mom, came up with.
I can just cook when they are asleep and leave the dinner or lunch or whatever ready the night before for the next day, or leave as much done the night before to do some food prep. That's doable.
This is a real question. Can that work for you? Do you think, is that sustainable for you? Or are you going to be ticked off about it?
I think that could work. I think that could work. I thought about it before, and I did not try it because I thought that they should be able to play by themselves. And maybe that's a thought or a strategy, like you were calling it, that is the wrong strategy right now, because obviously they can't, and perhaps forcing something too soon.
Right. It's like if you were to ask me to run a 4-minute mile, like you could give me all the timeouts in the world, but I'm never going to be able to run a 4-minute mile.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're asking right now of Valentina. And so one way to be aware of that it's going on is when you use the word should, maybe she should, it's what is the reality? You have all this data that she can't handle it. And so then to say, it's a can't, it's not a won't. I would always assume that she can't do it, not that she won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can be creative about, okay, so how can we change the situation so I'm not making her run a 4-minute mile.
Oh, so good. So good. That is where so much of the conflict lies, and so much of the like anguish lies on the parenting side. We get so married to our expectations. And I love how you highlighted that anytime the word should shows up, like that's a red flag, that you are married to an expectation around which there's a gap between that expectation and the reality, given all of the data points, like you mentioned, that you have in front of you, there is a gap between your expectation and what the reality is of who this person is today. So before we can even think about boundaries, we have to accept the reality of who all of these people are and where they are in terms of development and time, their way of being. Like, believe people when they show you who they are. Accept that. And only kind of once we do that part can we then think about, okay, now accepting that that capacity is what it is, that they are who they are in this moment. How can I get my need met and the baby get their need met and everyone else's needs met? Because if we're trying to solve that problem with an imagined version of the person,
Yeah,
it's not going to be effective.
it won't work at all. And we'll all get frustrated. And that's
Yeah.
how, oh, now I'm at my wit's end and I'm in timeout land.
Yes. Yes. I even love this example so much because it's such a common one. Like on a practical level, I I've lost count of how many times a parent has come to me and said, I need help making them be okay when they're on the floor together. One will hurt the other one, like every time they're on the floor together.
Yeah.
To which, my res- response is like, sounds like they can't be on the floor together alone, which is totally developmentally appropriate. Like a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old, like however old, doesn't really matter. Like whatever the kid is in front of you, given their, wiring and way of being, if they are showing you that they do not have the capacity to safely interact with their sibling on the floor with shared toys in shared space without your help, then believe them and we can still get your needs met. Let's accept that and come up with some solutions that accept that reality.
Yeah, exactly. And I really wanted to check in if this making dinner separately was going to work for her. Because if it's not, she's going to be resentful. She's going to make the kids pay. It's going to leak out in other ways.
Yes.
This is not about only what's going on for the kids and their capacity limits. It's about our capacity limits too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And there are, again, like we said earlier, like there's always a way into that overlap in the Venn diagram of needs. There
Mhm.
is always a way. We just have to accept the people and the reality for what it is and accept your needs for what they are, your true needs for what they are. And I think where a lot of people get confused is they confuse their strategy for their need. Like, I need
Yeah.
them to play on the floor by themselves. Well, that's your strategy, but what's your need? What's the need underneath that their behavior is getting in the way of?
Yeah. Yeah, and it could be any number of things. I want ease. I'm exhausted. I'm vital functions. I want to make dinner. I want to contribute to the house. Or I want this to happen because I'm wanting peace of mind that you're going to get along in the future. And this is the
Yes.
way I'm going to trust that somehow that's going to happen, even though I'm not seeing it right now.
Yes. Or it could be like sensory overwhelm with the noise. Like, so the solution would be so different depending on what your true need is. So to really dig underneath and uncover what is that actual true need is so powerful. And in this case, like her need was to make dinner.
Yeah.
And there are lots
In a
of
way
ways to do
that,
that.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we listen to clip 5?
We can. Or would you like to talk about boundaries?
Sure. Yes.
You want to
Let's.
talk about that? Because these issues about, acknowledging and boundaries, and it might be a semantic issue, but what I was thinking was, because the you'd use just use the word boundaries before we get to boundaries. And so I have a different framework around that I think gets us to similar places, but perhaps in a more gentle and collaborative way. And so, what I'm curious about is when you think about setting a boundary, could you share a time where you're like, okay, boundary, got to set the boundary, got to hold the boundary?
One child hitting another.
Mm. Because, yeah, I mean, physical, like, that's going to have a real negative impact. So, Right. So there are all sorts of ways to stop that from happening. And like I said, this might just be a semantic issue, but for that, I would say, I'm going to stop you from doing that. I'm going to stop you from doing that, and I'm going to physically separate. I'm going to try to get I'm sure you would do something similar. Like, I'll take the blows for the time being. Yeah. And so in that, I guess I don't even think of that as a boundary. I guess I just hold it as, what am I going to do to stop to stop it from happening? Like, I'll say, I'm going to stop you, and I'm going to physically, and I will now physically separate you, and now let's find out what's going on.
Yeah, I think there's an immense amount of confusion around boundaries. And like I did a whole podcast episode on boundaries because I'm such a nerd for it. But
Yeah.
like a boundary is actually 100% within your control. So it's about, what am I going to do? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? It's about you and not about someone else. So like in the parenting world, we often think of a boundary as like, you will not hit your sister when you're on the floor playing. But
Because you will not. That's so confusing. I talk about speaking truth with care. That's not even speaking the truth, because obviously the person is hitting there. You will not do that. Well, come on now. Like, it's happening.
yes, yes. Whereas a boundary is actually something that's 100% in your control. It's about you. So a boundary could be like, if I'm seeing those warning signs that aggression is coming and their capacity limits have been reached, I will put myself physically between them. Like that
Yeah.
might be like a boundary that I hold, like in our family, that I will always do that. It's something that's completely within my control.
Absolutely. I love this. Yes, because I hear so often, and it sounds like it's sloppy, about like, well, I'm setting that boundary and you're not crossing it. Right?
Yeah.
There's like that. And it's not about like, I actually have this, I can't handle this. Like, I have my own capacity limit here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you're making that it's about the internal focus. I've hit my capacity limit, and therefore I'm taking this action. And that way it's not a power over situation of me telling you. It's because when I think boundaries, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to cross your boundary. Okay. Right? And I'm angry about your boundary. And here we go. Let's go, boundary setting person. Right? No, it's like, here's my limit. And then if it's not working for you, typically how I feel is sad. And so we can feel sad that I just don't have it in me to talk about this right now. I got no gas in the tank. And then we get to feel sad as opposed to angry and co-hold together. Okay, so what else could we do since, I'm at my own capacity limit?
Yes,
Yeah, to
absolutely.
acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for teaching me about that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having this incredible conversation with me. I'm so excited to hear our next clips. I want to hear where this goes.
Okay, so here is the second role play that we're featuring from your extraordinary listenership. These people, we're going to call the mom Brandy. Brandy has 5 kids who range in age from 3 to 14. Her oldest is named Lennon. And our role play was all about the conflicts that she's having with Lennon related to contribution to the house, what she calls chores, not happening on the timeline or to the standard that she expects. There's that word. And also math. There are math videos for him to watch, and he is checked out. And so those are the conflicts that are happening. And so she laid all those out for me. And before we got into the role play, I asked her some questions, because I like to go big picture with people before we get into a role play, because that way, when I find out what their big picture vision for their family is, as we do the role play, we can see, are we moving closer towards that vision or are we moving further away from it? And so she shared so much about her vision for, in particular, her relationship with Lennon. Okay, so then I asked her this question. What does your son want in relationship with you?
I've never asked him, so I mean, I can.
Do you want to ask him?
Yeah, Lennon, Can you come here, please?
I'm curious, do you want to hear what your mom shared about what she wants in relationship with you and what she wants for you in your life? Would you like to hear that from her?
Sure.
Yeah, basically that I like how you worded everything, just an ongoing connection. I'm continuous resource here for you, and that I'm always going to be a safe space for you. And I also want to make sure that as you grow up, you have these life skills that are necessary as an adult, so you're not struggling when you're out on your own. And to know that we will always be here no matter what.
I would also add that your mom also wants to more great talks, and that you're also in touch with choice, that you know when you're making a choice that you have freedom to make choice, that you have a real sense of freedom to make choices. That was also something she said that she really wants for you in your life. Did that capture it?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Oh, so good. I love that you started off with some values work, which I'm also such a nerd for. So I love, love, love that. Because if we don't have sort of a that broader view with a destination in mind, like we need that in order to set our compass to know where to step in this moment.
Exactly. Exactly. So, having had that sweet connection and sharing, it was time to talk about chores and what was going on with the chores. And I'd already had a chance to connect with her about the needs that she was meeting with the strategy she was attached to related to chores. It had to do with uh, peace of mind, support, and ease. And so she felt heard. So she was loosened up on her strategy enough to consider some other possible strategies. It was time to connect with Lennon on what was going on for him. And so let's listen to that.
When I do chores, I do them. But when my sister does chores, here's the thing. She's like 3 years younger than me. No, or four. 4 years younger than me. And I would do chores at her when I was her age. But the thing is that when my sister refuses to do her chores, I do my parents make me do her chores with no extra like favors.
Incentives, yeah, like
Yeah.
money and
So
stuff.
just free. And I think that with my chores, look, I understand you want me to be outside and be active. I can do that. But if I do the chores and play, let's say, basketball a lot, then I feel like I could play my game for a while.
He's talking
Hence,
about
for like tournaments and
he's
stuff
talking
like
about
that.
video games because that's what we use a lot as incentive is video games and like
Money.
because I require or money because I require him to like go outside for a specific amount of time to get physical activity, but it's always a struggle.
What I'm sensing here is you have a system that's about incentives.
Mhm.
And if what you want is a sense of choice,
Yes.
incentive and choice are not super compatible.
Okay.
Do you see the
Yeah. Now that you,
internal conflict in that?
oh, absolutely. Like I guess I've never really thought about it that way, but now that you put it, that there absolutely will be a conflict with that because if you're not getting the incentives, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, and you were like 2 weeks late to pay me my $10 a
Okay,
week.
okay.
2 weeks late.
Okay, I know. Okay.
Oh, that was so rich to hear both of them interacting together. Like, I just want to thank them for showing up together for this conversation because that is so rich for all of us to get to learn from and benefit from. So I'm just feeling like an overwhelming sense of gratitude for them showing up with such authenticity for this conversation.
And wasn't Brandy's discovery amazing in the moment and how quick
Yes.
she woke up to what she was doing?
Yes, I mean you could hear as he's explaining it all how logically that would be the takeaway from the strategy that she has been employing. And so for you to highlight and for her to be able to receive that is running counter to the values that you just shared with us.
It was a profound moment and such a privilege to be able to be a part of it. It was extraordinary. So, but it doesn't stop. So we co-created a new strategy now that we had clarity about that, and let's listen to the strategy that they came up with. If these clothes got put away, the dishes got done, and they were set up for success, and he watches the siblings, is that enough does that feel like enough of a contribution?
That's to me that's plenty.
And it was all completely separate from incentive, reward, all of it. This was an agreement that they came to without any of that. Okay, so then it was time to head on over to math. And for this one, I decided to connect with Lennon first about, what was up? What was up with him, his strategy of checking out for math. And by the way, his PlayStation had been taken away because he was checked out for math. Okay, so let's listen to what Lennon says.
When my mom explains math to me, I understand it. But those videos that I'm supposed to understand it from, I do not understand it.
The online videos, you're having a very hard time learning.
Yeah. And
Not working.
my dad, like I told him, and I told him about a gap year, and I said, hey, when I'm 18, before I go to college, I could like do a gap year to play overseas for like Europe. And then like he says, oh, we're practically already having your gap year right now. And I'm
And
like,
that hurt because you weren't being seen. That had a negative impact on you because you weren't being seen because you're trying the best you can. Is that true, Lennon?
yes.
And they're very difficult situations because these videos are not helping you. And so when your dad said that, it was pretty devastating to you.
Yes, like so this is just like an empty year, he's saying.
Exactly. And you're like, that is so that your sense is you're working your butt off and you're not being seen for that. So the issue related to math is he's having a very hard time with the videos.
Yeah, he likes when I sit down and explain it to him, but I just watch the same videos.
But I
'Cause
don't understand them. Like
Right.
like
So Brandy, so from your perspective, is it that this is more work than you want to be putting in, or you're confused because why can't you're confused? Why can't he extract the same kind of information that you're able to extract? Is you like, oh gosh, he's wanting you to do his work for him? Is
I kind of
that
get that
the
feeling.
story you've got?
But then, yes, I have mostly that thought that like he just wants me to do the work for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have this other thought that I remember that this is the third time I've basically taken algebra. So it's easier for me. Yeah.
On the nose. And different people learn differently.
Yeah.
Some people find watching a video super easy. Other people, so Lennon's learning style is this one-on-one. So Brandy,
Yeah. So I gotta,
are you seeing why he's checking out?
yeah.
Are you and
Oh yeah, of course. I'm willing to like sit down and I just have, yeah.
He's not wanting you to do his work for him. Because this is your fear about how is he going to be able to take care of himself when he's on his own. And you're so scared that he won't. And you're looking for evidence of that in the world. And you're vigilant. You're scared. He's wanting me to watch this video. He can't do it himself. And all the demons start freaking out in your head. Oh no, that's my worst nightmare. And that's actually not the reality because thank you. You just remembered. This is your third time taking algebra.
I've taken it in high school, college,
so like to
and
add
I
something.
think I did it twice.
So is the PlayStation going back to him? Because the PlayStation, and whether he has it or not, has absolutely nothing to do with why he's not paying attention to these math videos. You see, they're not hooked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This incentive thing and the taking it away thing, can we let that go? Can you let that stuff go?
Oh, so good. So good. I love the part when you said like you're looking for evidence that confirms those stories, like that confirmation bias. Like your fear is he won't be able to take care of himself. And so you're looking for evidence of that. So that's how you're interpreting what you're seeing, when really what Lennon is telling you is that he's not understanding the math concepts from the videos.
And that's all it is. That's it.
Yes.
But our fears, right? Our fears as parents, this is what it's the expectations and the fears. And they get us into trouble all the time.
Yes. Yes. And there are so many, like once like her interpretation of his need was like, oh, to be lazy or to get out. And I don't mean this in an accusatory way, but like, or to like, get out of doing the work or to get her to do the work. And again, that's her story, but that's not like, we got to dig into like, what is his true need? And in this situation, and I feel like this is true in a lot of situations, just asking the kid. Like it's enough to get that information, which we like so many parents forget. Like we forget, like we can just ask them and they're going to have insight around what that true need is for them. And there are so many possible solutions or strategies to try and meet that need if sitting down and teaching him how to do it is not within her capacity. Like we can hire a tutor. Maybe he can, like even as homeschoolers, you can, if financial concerns preclude a tutor, like you can drop into the algebra class at the local high school and audit without a grade and just have them like teach the lessons. You could have form a study group. You could there are like so many like we can access that creativity once we are clear on what the need is. And then we can both come together like in partnership to collaborate around meeting that need.
And then it creates so much trust, and people are
Yes.
willing to share more. So this is our final clip because Lennon, you heard him say he had something to add. Let's listen to what he had to add.
My dad always tells me like how I'm the oldest child and like how I gotta get ready for the real world, even though I'm like 14. I'm like, I'm technically still considered a child. And then he says,
So
well,
much
you gotta
pressure,
like
Lennon.
I understand he wants me to think about my future so I don't do anything bad, but I
But I
feel like
think
I should
that's
still have some years
again,
to
I
be
think
a child.
that's dad's fear of wanting to make sure that you're able to like make your decisions and like that you are going to be prepared for like the real
Right.
world.
But he's like, it's so much pressure on Lennon. And
I
he's
know.
like,
And now that we had this meeting, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much he's internalizing a lot of like our anxieties about him. And like, I'm just like, he doesn't need to be carrying the weight of like our concerns
And then
about
dad
like a
always
few, okay.
that always one more thing. Dad always tells me when I'm gone, you're gonna have to take care of your siblings. Like, oh my god, when you're gone, they're gonna be like 18.
Well, no, this is like, I think he gets concerns if he's ever gone, like if something were to ever happen,
I mean,
like,
his dad deep down.
well, that's dad's anxiety. So,
and after I stopped recording, she shared that Lennon's father's father had died when Lennon's father was young. So now we got in touch with the root of so much of this.
Yes, that's the fear that's in the driver's seat here.
Yeah. And this happened in less than 55 minutes, this conversation. So that's the 4 C's of conflict prevention and repair.
Ah, thank you so much for creating the space for these conversations to happen, for bringing your experience and your knowledge and your skill to these conversations for us all to witness. And again, thank you so much to the families who participated in this. You showed up with vulnerability and authenticity, and please know that all of us out here listening are feeling nothing but gratitude for you showing up in that way. And we all relate to so much of what you're saying, even as you and I here are talking about, this fear was showing up and that strategy was showing up. We're identifying all of that so readily because A, we experience that within ourselves in our own lives, and B, with all of the families we work with. Like you're completely normal in that sense. And we really, really appreciate you showing up with that vulnerability. I am so proud of all of you for being so brave, and I am so grateful. So thank you, Lisa, for bringing all of this to us.
It was an honor and a privilege. And everyone, as you say, it's so relatable. I was relating. It was teaching me things about myself. And oh, that's why I did that. I learned so much doing these.
Oh, absolutely. The show notes can be found. I don't want this conversation to end. I'm supposed to. We got to dive into the resources, but I just want to keep talking. I want to know if there's a cultural piece to that last family too. But okay. The show notes can be found at sagefamily.com/podcast97, where you can also subscribe and get future show notes sent right to your inbox. So what, Lisa, are your favorite resources to help people dive deeper into this topic?
And they're all there. I'm so excited. So, for starters, for Sage Family Podcast listeners, I would love to send you the Conflict Prevention Jumpstart Kit that includes the methodology that I shared with helpful questions to move you through each of the stages in PDF format so you can stick it on the fridge. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Got you covered there. Also, there's a universal needs list. There are case studies so you can see how to implement. So I'd love to hook you up with that. In addition, there is a link to Marshall Rosenberg's incredible book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. There's a link to his template that he has. That's there as well. There are additional resources. If you want to bring this into your community, if you want to find out more about how to apply it with sibling conflicts, if you want to teach empathy to little kids, there's a great resource for that. And then finally, so I'm part of this lineage. My teachers are Marshall Rosenberg and people named Inbal Kashtan and Mickey Kashtan and a number of others. And Mickey has co-founded something called Nonviolent Global Liberation Community, which is all about bringing us back to this spirit of collaboration on a global scale, which is, of course, what you and I are working to do within families. And so there's a link to the community that she has co-founded.
Oh my goodness, does the world need it? Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. We are going to link to all of these in the show notes. So everybody jump in and access all of these resources so you can bring this incredible work into yourself and into your families and into your communities. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Rachel.